Welcome back, everybody. It is so good to have you with us again as we take another deep dive into He and I.
That's right, Gabrielle Bossis' spiritual diary.
Yeah, and I know last time so many of you were like me, just so moved by those conversations with Jesus that she chronicled, over those 15 years.
Absolutely.
But we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit this time and really zoom in on one specific aspect, and that is prayer.
Okay.
What can Bossis' experience teach us about connecting with God, in our own lives, and especially as devout Catholics who are already familiar with his text?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And what I think is so striking about He and I is how it challenges like some of our conventional ways of thinking about prayer, even, within our Catholic faith.
Yeah.
It kind of pushes us to go a little bit deeper beyond, just the rituals and routines and discover a level of intimacy with God that can feel, quite radical.
I totally agree. And you see right from the start this emphasis on prayer as a deeply personal relational experience.
Right.
Like, it's not just about reciting memorized prayers or going through the motions. It's about fostering a genuine connection with Jesus.
Absolutely. And the book gives us like a powerful example of this in that image of two foreheads touching that Jesus uses to describe prayer.
Huh?
It's not about distance or formality. It's about this closeness.
Intimacy.
Yeah, a merging of hearts and minds.
That image really stayed with me. It's on page 208.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it just completely shifted my perspective.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, come closer. Let's be truly present with each other.
And this desire for closeness isn't limited to, specific times or places.
Right.
Throughout the book, you see Bossis having these conversations with Jesus everywhere, on trains, at the movies, even while she's mending gloves.
It's true.
And it really challenges this notion that prayer is something we only do in church or at, designated times.
That's what I think is so inspiring about it.
Yeah.
It's like an invitation to bring prayer into every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
Like finding those little moments throughout the day to connect with him.
Yeah.
Like pausing to appreciate a beautiful sunset or offering a silent prayer of thanks for a simple meal.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that constant awareness of God's presence, turning, even the most ordinary moments into opportunities for connection. But, reading He and I also kind of made me rethink or reconsider, those times that we set aside for focused prayer.
That's interesting. What are you thinking about?
Well, on the one hand, the book really emphasizes this constant communication, these little whispers of prayer throughout the day.
All right.
But then at the same time, Jesus talks about, needing Bossis' dedicated prayer time, those periods of deeper communion. And I'm just wondering, how do we balance those two?
Yeah.
Is it possible that those small moments of connection can be, just as powerful as, dedicated prayer sessions?
I see what you mean. That's a really great question, and one that I don't think there's a simple answer to. But maybe it's not about, one being better than the other. Perhaps it's about recognizing the value of both.
Okay.
Those short bursts of prayer throughout the day kind of keep us connected, remind us of God's presence, even amidst the busyness.
Right.
And then those dedicated times of prayer allow us to go deeper, to listen more intently, to truly open our hearts and minds to his guidance.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's about recognizing the beauty of both and finding a rhythm that works for each of us.
And that brings me to another thought while we're discussing these different ways of praying. The book also really emphasizes the importance of humility.
Yes.
Especially for us as Catholics.
Yes, and it's a theme that just aligns beautifully with our tradition.
Absolutely.
Remember how Jesus repeatedly encourages Bossis to embrace her nothingness in prayer?
Right.
I know that word can sound a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But I think it points to a profound truth.
It's not about putting ourselves down or denying our gifts, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about recognizing our utter dependence on God. It's about approaching prayer not with a sense of self-sufficiency, but with a heart that's open to his grace, his guidance, his transforming power.
It reminds me of the concept of surrender to God's will, which is so central to our faith.
Absolutely.
Letting go of our ego and our need to control everything.
Right.
Acknowledging that God's plan is so much greater than anything we could come up with on our own.
Yes, and I think that's where the power of He and I really lies.
Okay.
It takes these core principles of our faith, humility, surrender, trust, and it just brings them to life through these intimate conversations between Bossis and Jesus.
Yeah.
It shows us what it actually looks like to live those principles out in our daily lives, especially through prayer.
Yeah. I love that.
It's just so powerful. And it's in that surrender, that letting go, that I think we discover the true heart of prayer, which he and I reminds us is love.
Yes, love. It's a theme that comes up again and again throughout the book.
Right.
Love is the driving force behind everything. And it's not just about us loving God.
Right.
It's about recognizing the immense love he has for us.
Absolutely.
A love that is beyond, our comprehension.
Yeah, remember that passage where Jesus tells Bossis, I am Samson, but he regretted having spoken, whereas I yield myself completely because my love is beyond all your power to imagine. It's on page 88.
That one really struck me, too. It's almost like a paradox.
Right.
You have Samson, this figure of incredible strength,
Yeah.
yet limited by his own choices.
Yeah.
And then you have Jesus, who embodies ultimate power, yet chooses to yield himself completely out of love.
Out of love, yeah.
It's like he's saying, my strength isn't about forcing my will on you. It's about offering myself to you freely without reservation.
Without reservation.
It makes you realize that God's love isn't conditional or transactional.
Right.
It's not about earning his favor or following a set of rules perfectly.
Right.
It's about opening ourselves to this incredible outpouring of love that he longs to give us.
And I think that's where the challenge for us as Catholics comes in. We're so used to focusing on, what we need to do to be worthy to please God.
To earn it.
But he and I really invites us to shift our focus.
Okay.
To simply receive his love.
To rest in that love, knowing we're already fully accepted and cherished just as we are.
Exactly. And that acceptance, that knowing we're loved unconditionally, can be so transformative.
Yeah.
It frees us from the need to strive and perform. It
Yeah.
allows us to approach prayer not out of obligation, but out of a desire to connect with the one who loves us most deeply.
And as we experience that love more fully,
Yeah.
it naturally spills over into other areas of our lives.
Absolutely.
We become more patient, more forgiving, more compassionate towards others.
There's a beautiful passage where Jesus says to Bossis, try to be my smile and my kind voice for everybody.
Oh.
It's a simple statement, but it speaks volumes about the transformative power of prayer.
Like that love we receive in prayer becomes a source of strength and inspiration.
Yes.
Empowering us to be a reflection of God's love in the world.
And that's where he and I offer such a powerful message, especially for those of us, who are actively involved in our Catholic communities.
Right.
It's a reminder that our faith isn't just about personal piety.
Yeah.
It's about allowing God's love to flow through us, touching the lives of those around us.
It makes me think about all the ways we can bring that love into our parishes, our families, our workplaces.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a simple act of kindness, a listening ear,
So
a willingness to forgive.
Exactly. Those small acts of love can be so incredibly powerful, especially when they're rooted in that deep connection we foster through prayer.
Right.
It's like we become conduits of God's grace, spreading his love wherever we go.
And there's this beautiful sense of trust that runs throughout the book, this unwavering faith that God is working all things for good.
Right.
Even when we can't see it or understand it.
Absolutely. It's a challenging message, especially in the face of suffering or uncertainty.
Right.
But that's where the book offers such profound consolation.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even when things are difficult, God is with us. He's holding us, guiding us, loving us through it all.
And that's where surrender comes in, again, doesn't it? Trusting that even when things don't go as planned, even when we experience pain or loss, God is still in control.
Absolutely.
He's still working to bring about his ultimate purpose, which is our good and his glory.
And that surrender, that trust in God's providence, is a source of incredible peace and strength.
Yeah.
It allows us to let go of our anxieties and fears and rest in the knowledge that we're held in his loving embrace.
It's a beautiful and challenging message.
It is.
And one that I think speaks to the heart of what he and I teaches us about prayer.
Yes.
It's not just about asking for things or fulfilling our religious obligations.
Right.
It's about cultivating a deep and abiding relationship with God.
Yes.
A relationship built on love, trust, and surrender.
And it's in that relationship, in that constant dialogue with the divine, that we discover our true purpose and find the strength and grace to live out our faith in the world.
It's that transformative power of prayer that I think really sets he and I apart.
Yeah.
It's not just a theoretical exploration of our faith. It's a lived experience of someone who encountered God in a profound and intimate way.
Right.
And allowed that encounter to shape her life.
I agree. And what's so inspiring about Bossis's journey is that it shows us that, this kind of intimacy with God isn't reserved for saints or mystics.
Right.
It's available to all of us right here, right now.
That's what I love about this book. It doesn't make prayer seem like this complicated or unattainable thing.
Right.
It's about those simple everyday moments of connection. the willingness to open our hearts to God's presence no matter where we are or what we're doing.
Remember that passage where Jesus tells Bossis, "I am in everything, and I am all love, be imbued with this thought."
Oh, yeah. Such a simple statement, yet so profound.
So profound.
It's a beautiful invitation to see the world through the lens of God's love, to find Him in the ordinary, the unexpected, even the challenging.
And it's a reminder that we're never alone. God's love surrounds us, permeates us, upholds us, even when we don't feel it or see it.
I think that's what I'll take away from this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's reignited my desire to cultivate that constant awareness of God's presence, to see prayer not as a duty, but as a privilege, a chance to commune with the one who loves me more than I can imagine.
That's beautifully said. And, for our listeners who are already familiar with He and I, maybe this deep dive has offered like a fresh perspective on prayer,
Yeah.
encouraging you to kind of revisit the text with a renewed sense of wonder and openness.
Maybe there's a passage that speaks to you in a new way, or a challenge that resonates more deeply now than it did before.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I hope this conversation has inspired you to deepen your own relationship with God through prayer.
And remember, even if you struggle with prayer, even if you feel distant or disconnected, God is still there.
He is.
He's waiting for you with open arms, ready to meet you wherever you are on your journey.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into He and I and the beautiful lessons it offers about prayer.
Yep.
May you be filled with God's peace and love as you continue to seek His presence in your life.